DIY.
This has been something that has been so surprising to me and at the same time not so surprising. As I started to become probably the most in my career, at least in the public forum, more vocal about my own views, that I thought for the most part, like if you're a participant in hip hop, there's certain things that I'm like, we're not even going to debate that, are we? Is that even really a conversation? But I'm seeing that the more, and I've noticed it, not to blame Drake, but I've noticed that so many people who have come to the defense, at least that have come into my presence online, who seem to be the fans of his, seem to have this point of view that, for instance, I shared this post here from Wise Intelligent, and I want to get your point of view on this. I don't know if you saw this, but he said, after the battle was said and done, he said, this battle affirms that what hip hop has been saying for 50 years. Neither record sales, popularity, spins, streams, awards, likes, or shares dictate who are the dopest MCs, let alone GOATs. Those commercial achievements are great, but they are not hip hop. Resonating with the deeper sentiment of black people is a bigger determinant than any of the other corporate created BS. I don't think many people had an issue with the first points, but it's that last point that seemed to bring out a lot of vitriol from folks that are calling themselves hip hop heads. And I'm like, I don't know why do you think that makes so many people, especially in this climate right now, who seem to at least have some kind of appreciation for modern hip hop, why do you think that makes folks uneasy to even acknowledge the origins of this?
Hip hop's so big now. Like, well, how about this? I think hip hop is so known now. And most people think that rap and hip hop are synonymous. And so I think that rap is way bigger than hip hop. You know what I mean? Like, Devil Go Down to Georgia is one of my favorite rap songs. This is not hip hop. It's a fantastic country song. He's rapping his ass off. It's not hip hop. It's rapping.
I never thought about that being the devil went down to Georgia. You're looking for a soul to steal. And you jumped on the hickory stick and said, "Now let me tell you something, because the devil's in you." And the devil. I've never, shout out to Mary Catherine Gallagher and Superstar. I'd never thought of that being a rap song. That is good. Damn.
That's all. That is not hip hop.
He was barring up.
He was, So, I think that also hip hop has also helped elevate so many different communities from different places.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think internationally, hip hop is about 20 years behind what's happening in America. And I say that in the context of when most of the time when other countries' hip hop scene starts, it mirrored. It was almost like they were trying to be like, rap like, dance like, whatever was happening in the States.
Right.
Then as time passed, it takes on its own identity in those places. Right. So, that's how you get to, whatever was happening in London all the way to Central C. Right. You go through grime to get to that point. You go through garage to get to that point. You go through Soul Solid Crew to get to that point. Right. But now you get to a point where it's just more representative of them. And so once you start saying, yeah, that's cool and all, but, it doesn't seem like you over here represent what Black Americans are talking about. That's not hip hop. It becomes offensive. It's easy for it to become offensive. And also, too, I think that particularly when it comes to anything that Black people do in America, by the way.
Yeah, let's not limit it.
That Black people do. After a while, it becomes, but, we were there too. You wouldn't have done it without us, whether that is Fat Joe saying hip hop was 50-50 created by Black people, or that is like Jewish people saying you wouldn't have had the civil rights movement without them. It's like, it's just this thing where there is a level of credibility that being close to our community has always garnered in general when it comes to certain movements, when it comes to cool points, obviously, when it comes to inspiration for downtrodden oppressed people in other countries. Clearly America has more cameras than everyone else. That's not a Black innovation or anything, but that's how it's just spread, that there becomes a, mirroring our experience or comparing what people have done to our experience is ultimately a qualifier and also a level maker, I think, that comes out in other communities. So when we were like, no, that's not it, people get upset, man.
Here's my question, though, because it seems like, since we're going to get on this conversation briefly about, kind of the rewriting of history, even to a certain degree, which you heard Kendrick kept saying, you're not a colleague, you're an effing colonizer. As we get into these conversations, the thing I don't understand, it seems like when a segment of anyone's culture gets overtaken and the story gets rewritten, they tend to rename it something, right? I never forget when I saw the headlines. I don't want to put it on the wrong brand, but let's say it was Gucci, that they were calling the newest thing in fashion are these hair scarves, and it's like, nigga, that's a do-rag. What are y'all doing right now? What are we? and literally, it's tied the same way, but they're like these scalp scarves are they're the wave of the future, and it's like, okay, why didn't y'all go? And I guess maybe that's where rap music, to a certain degree, is a little bit of rechanging that. But it's like you use so many of the elements that made rap music possible, which are the origins in hip hop, right? And it's like you wove them all together. So now when we talk about hip hop, you're so right in that there's not really a separation between the conversations of rap music and hip hop. And there's a lot of folks who are participants and think that they're in hip hop that don't realize you're talking about two different factions, two different entities entirely.
Completely. Right. I mean, rap is a part of hip hop. It's not the totality of hip hop.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, so, but that distinction isn't something that's obviously even a lot of people, even a lot of Black people don't really think about it that deep, you know, just generally speaking.
Right.
You know, have an understanding that, you know, rap is hip hop, but we don't really consider how other people rap and it's not hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we don't necessarily think about it as the inverse because it's so innate to this generation and how we've grown up and how we've, you know, all been a part of shaping this. Even people who aren't even in hip hop are part of shaping it, right? Because that represent, you know, a culture or community take place within, you know, hip hop itself. You know, as fashion changes, you know, even if you're just a cool kid in the right neighborhood, you may not be into hip hop, but it might have an impact on that. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, or slang like that, you know. So a lot of times slang is just expressed through hip hop, but it's just some on the ground stuff that's just been happening in neighborhoods, and the guy with the microphone is the one that told the world about it. You know? So you know, I think that's a big part, and I think it's offensive to people to feel like, you know, they've contributed to it. Like I have one of my closest friends. This is an interesting story. I'm not gonna say her name, but one of my closest friends. She's amazing. She's so talented, and she's worked in hip hop. You know, she's from another country. She's has a appreciation, affinity for Black culture, just in general, you know, not even from like a profiting kind of thing. Like she gives way more than she takes, or she's received rather. And there was a company she wanted to work for, and she talked to them, and they were like, "Oh man, you're awesome, but you know, at a company we only hire Black people at our company." And she got so upset.
Right.
She was like, "That's racist. That's so upset." I'm like, man, I'm so sorry, man. I'm sorry that you're going through that, man. I think you're talented enough to work anywhere, you know? And she's like, yeah, but do you agree? And I'm like, well, do I agree?
It gets tricky there.
I mean, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I support Black people organizing and supporting each other. Like, I just fundamentally do, you know? And I don't feel like, she's like, yeah, but that's racist not to hire me, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I guess, but like, actually, it's not. I don't know how deep you want to get into this conversation. The point is, some people just want to support their own community, and that happens across all kinds in every community. Like I know companies that just want to hire like people who just are closer to the culture. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily one thing or the other thing, but at the same time, you know, we don't have, every time Black people organize in some fashion, there's people from other places that come and tell us that, you know, it's a slippery slope if we do that, or we're going to stop, what happens when we stop supporting you, you know, or if you vote for the team, they're going to put back in shackles. We hear that all the time, you know what I mean? So, you know, and there's certain things just about Black people don't understand. Like, you know, Black people are inherently conservative. You know what I mean? We like Bibles, dolls, and guns.
Right.
Okay? When I say Bible,
because there's certain things, even to this day, you don't like in a Black household, you do not disrespect Jesus. You do not disrespect like there's so many things that are at the core. I remember my grandma used to have it in here, like there ain't no louder voice in this house than them and Jesus or God. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's inherent in our DNA for a lot of us. Yeah.
And even when I say Bibles, I'm being like, we're faith based. Like,
Yeah.
we love Islam so much. We created two of our own versions of Islam. We have the Faith of Islam, and we got five percenters. Like, we are faith based people. We like money because we used to be a cash equivalent. You want to wonder why we talk about wealth and money in our music so much? Well, we are always on the take side of that. We generally don't have as much communal wealth as anybody else. And also, we used to be a cash equivalent. You could sell five of us and get a house.
Sheesh.
You know what I'm saying? And guns. We've always been, our entire existence in this country has been generally at the barrel of a gun. We want protection, want land, leave us alone. So
DIYers, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Come on, man. Stop being greedy. Peace.